Hello.
Hello. It works.
Hey everyone, welcome. So my name is Mike Acosta and I'm the course leader for Games Art here at Staffordshire University, and I'm joined here today with Nick Pinkney from Konami.
Hello everybody.
So this is kind of it's a fireside chat, so it's me kind of asking Nick a bunch of questions and just kind of, we're just going to free flow as we go through, and if things come up then we can talk about that. Think about any questions you want to ask towards the end as well. I've got some backup questions in case you guys go a bit shy and you don't have any questions, but hopefully you're going to have some questions. One thing, can I just ask, how many of you guys in here are University of Staffordshire students? Just with a show of hands. I'd say it's almost all of you. Okay, cool. Right, Nick.
What's that question?
Welcome. Okay, so you were a student here, and can you tell us what it was that you studied, and what drew you towards that course in the first instance?
I studied video game design and development, and I did like a 4-year course here. It actually wasn't on this campus because 10 years ago we were actually based down in Stafford, so the campus was slightly different. I think the facilities you've got here are like way better now. Yeah, it was a really good experience. We had a really good year group. A lot of people who went on to go and work in the industry. So yeah, I mean, I can't sort of say better about Staffs Uni for the level of education we received.
That's good. It's good for you guys to know as well. Yeah, we were just talking outside. Some of your peers at the time, they're now working at some pretty big studios and doing extremely well. It sounds like you came from almost like a golden year group of students.
Yeah, there's definitely a golden generation. There's a couple of guys that are over at Rockstar. I think they're still there. There's somebody who was over at Koei Tecmo for a good while. Yeah, people have gone off to do some, really wonderful things.
Including yourself?
Well.
Well, the reason why you're on the stage with us is because you attended the first Ukie conference, so it's 10 years ago. I was actually at it as well, in a different capacity. I was a lecturer at a different college. But thinking back to that time, was there anything specific that kind of jumped out at you about that conference, something that you took away that inspired or shaped your career, perhaps?
I think just working with Ukie in general was a big kind of key part for me, and the fact that Ukie had come and done that for the first time with us. I think I had been at the uni for, 3 years at the time, so the course was growing and changing, and it's grown into what it is now, which much bigger and better. It's constantly evolving by the looks of it, and that involvement with Ukie led me down a path which was really important to me getting into the games industry. After the student conference, I went and did the Ukie Games Jam, and we worked with a bunch of people from different studios. So I was working with a guy, he was like a mentor for us whilst we basically spent, I'm sure most of you guys have done games jams before, you spend 48 hours just constantly working on a crazy idea that oftentimes doesn't work and gets completely broken. But yeah, we were working with a guy who had been working on the Total War series, who'd been giving us loads of advice and stuff like that. And it was those opportunities that really kind of started to cement in my mind that I needed to go and find people in the industry to learn from, because I was so kind of naive, I guess. And I was really lucky again with Ukie, where I was able to go to Gamescom and essentially be a student ambassador. And I met a ton more people in the games industry.
You stole my next question.
Did I? Sorry. I mean, what I can do is, if you want, is...
I'll just leave you my questions and leave.
I mean, I'll just talk if you want.
My question was that you worked with Ukie, you went to Gamescom 2015. That experience, what role did you play? What were you doing with Ukie there? And I guess it's kind of a similar question. What experience did you get from that? And I kind of want you to talk about, because we had a little conversation outside about it's making those connections, right?
Absolutely. I think just to backtrack, so that I don't completely invalidate your question. Yeah. When I was here at the student conference before, we had a load of really cool talks, and one of them was actually from Falmouth University, who at the time were pioneering a bunch of essentially kind of roads into the industry. Things were quite different 10 years ago, I think, but a peer of mine was making a game that had kind of been partly funded by Sony and partly funded by Falmouth, and I think that inspired me to really kind of think, wow, there is a possibility for a stepping stone into doing something that I want to do, whether that be, working on larger brands or whether that be, making a game that, is kind of sat in the back of my mind somewhere. But back to where you were going with the Ukie stuff, I think when I was able to go to Gamescom with Ukie, we were there to kind of essentially look after various members of the UK games industry. So Gamescom is a fantastic event, and if you haven't been and you get the opportunity to go, I would strongly recommend it because it is one of the largest games events in the world. The footfall there for users is absolutely huge. The money that is put into advertising and showing off the latest games is...
For those who don't know, what is it and where is it?
Gamescom is a massive trade show and customer-facing event in Germany, in Cologne. So I don't know if is anybody aware of it? No? Okay, so I would definitely go and look it up. It's usually around the kind of August bank holiday weekend. Yeah, it is absolutely massive, and it is where a huge chunk of the games industry gathers. It's a massive event and a big date in the calendar. And I was lucky enough as essentially a graduate at that point, because I just delivered my final year project, to go out with Ukie and look after a large number of publishers and developers and other companies within the games industry. So yeah, we drank a lot of beer, Kolsch, which is the local lager in that area, and we looked after and sort of facilitated conversations, meetings with various people from the games industry. So there was people from everywhere. I met people from Koei Tecmo all the way through to like Playground, Sumo, PlayStation. Yeah, there were absolutely tons of great people there who were actually also willing to give you their time, even though they were very busy at a very busy event. They had, conversations and meetings to be had with people throughout the industry all day long. But it's a really great event, and if you can get the opportunity to go to the business area, not the customer facing area, it's definitely something I would recommend.
Yeah. I think I'd echo that with any of these types of events, is that if you can break down that sort of ice wall of I'm scared of going to talk to people and literally just try and make those connections with industry, you'll realise that everyone is so friendly. Like my experience for my first time ever coming to the Ukie conference was I'd come up from a place called Leamington, further down south. It's a hotbed of studios. There's between 30 to 50 different game studios surrounded in the surrounding area of Leamington. And at the first Ukie event, there was 3 speakers from Leamington. And as just a lecturer at the time, didn't have any connections at all. And after that first Ukie conference, I started making those contacts with those 3 people in Leamington. And then that grew. And all of a sudden, they were helping me write the next version of my course. And that course got designed by industry. And all that came from just kind of breaking down those walls and talking to people and trying to increase your contact lists. And
such a collaborative industry. I think it's really important to learn from other people what they're doing, and because it is an artistic industry, because it's a creative industry, I think having those conversations and breaking down those barriers and not making assumptions can evolve things tenfold. So that's amazing. I
mean, you said that at Gamescom there was one pub that pretty much the whole of the UK.
So there's a pub in Cologne called the Corkonian, which is an Irish pub, and every year a large majority of the games industry gathers there most evenings after a long day in the convention hall. So yeah, again, if you do go, that might be a place worth going to speak to people.
Yeah, there you go. Go to Gamescom.
Yeah.
Go to that pub. Make your connections.
Drink lots of Kolsch.
Move on from there. All right, so what year did you graduate?
I graduated in 2015.
Okay, so in 2015, what was your first move? Was it straight into the games industry, or was it a different, sideways move first?
So in 2015, I went to Gamescom, and I met somebody whilst I was out there. He had sent a briefcase to Valve with a USB stick in it, and he really wanted to work at Valve, and he'd started building like a Half-Life mod, essentially. He worked, I think, probably a good 2 years on this thing, and Valve went, "No, we can't have that. It's unsolicited material. You can't be sharing that with us." But the move generated enough interest in the media at the time that he was able to make some moves, and he released the mod. And when I met him out there, he asked if I would work on some music for the game. So that was kind of the first thing that I did within the industry. And I made the mistake, I think, that a lot of people make, where they're like, "Oh my God, I've made it. This is going to be amazing. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm going to live happily ever after." That did not happen at all, because I started to put my CV out and show people that I'd worked on this project, and I'd applied for lots of different positions all around the country, and I got nothing back, no interest whatsoever. And just to put it out there, at the time, I was predominantly looking for like audio and music-based roles, which are rare as anything. I think we were talking about a short while ago that there's probably like one or two people who work in those types of departments in most studios. So it's one of those kind of roles where you're fighting against a huge number of applicants, and obviously wasn't good enough.
There's competitive roles, and then there's like Jesus competitive roles. Yeah. And you're right. We were talking outside about how Blitz Games, who are one of the biggest game studios in the UK for a long while, they were based in Leamington. They had about 300 to 400 members of staff, and on a tour around their facilities, we walked into their audio room, which was basically kind of about the size of me to you, maybe slightly bigger, and I was like, "How many fit in here?"
Keep the audio guy in the closet.
2. Yeah, you need all your nice soundproofing and all that stuff, right? But it was just 2 people. And Blitz Games were, they were working on sort of 3 or 4 games at any one time. They had that many staff that they were working on various different games. But there was just this 1 or 2 audio people that were doing all the audio for all the games. So yeah, you were up against it. Yeah,
that didn't work out for me. But I think persistence is key, ultimately. I couldn't find anything, and then eventually you run out of money, and you're like, okay, I better do a job. So I ended up looking after kids in a care home, and I did that for about 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. And then one day somebody told me that there was a role available at Konami, and Metal Gear just so happens to be one of my favorite game series. Like anybody fan of Metal Gear? Nice, awesome, great. Thank you. It's good sales data for us. I jumped at the chance because I hadn't really seen any other opportunities at the time. And so I ended up basically joining as the janitor. Yeah.
So what is your role now? Because I think we haven't actually said that. What's your position at the moment?
I'm a AV producer, so I'm like a creative lead for a lot of the marketing work that we do in Europe for the EMEA region. So that's Europe.
Does that mean all those phenomenal cutscenes and trailers are you?
Some of it. Some things are me. Some things are done by the studios. It's a collaborative effort ultimately. So yeah, the thing is, it's for me where I am now. I kind of carved the role out, if you will. Like I spent a lot of time in the company, and I did a lot of different roles, and I did a lot of different things, and I learned a lot of different things, and I found a niche essentially within there. And so, yeah, it kind of, I do a lot of different things. But like, I don't know if anybody has played Silent Hill 2. It's just released. And we have been working on a lot of the marketing campaigns for that. So there's this giant mural that we've just done in Shoreditch in London. There are giant pyramid head kind of banners, and they're like, he's smashing through like glass and stuff. All these things that contribute to, people going out and rediscovering Silent Hill 2. So yeah, I mean, we do a lot of different things. We work on a lot of different creative elements for these games. So I mean, that's what I do now, basically. Cut together all sorts of videos and, trailers.
So what was you say janitor, I say facilities and administration.
Yeah.
But that transition from that to being junior audiovisual producer, how did that come about then? How did you then make that jump? Because there's quite a difference between those two roles.
So I kind of worked my way up, and there was actually another role in between there where I was working on Yu-Gi-Oh product as well. So I don't know if anybody collects Yu-Gi-Oh cards, but essentially I was working on like essentially the coordination of the Yu-Gi-Oh cards going from one place to another. Not particularly fun. But COVID hit, and during that period, I kind of decided to skill up a little bit. I think a lot of people made some decisions during COVID, like about their lives and what they wanted to do, and I decided to essentially kind of skill up my video editing and video production. And a colleague of mine left and went to Playground Games, and I saw his position was available. And I wasn't sure if they were going to hire for it, so I just kind of went and saw our president, who was a really, really approachable and nice guy. And I brought a presentation to him, and I cut some stuff together, and the rest is history, as they say. And he, very fortunately gave me that chance, that opportunity. And I think that's a big part of, getting work in the industry as well, is kind of seizing those opportunities when they present themselves.
That was a ballsy move.
Yeah, well, I could have probably lost my job actually if that had not gone right.
So what is the job then? Describe what's your day to day. What does the role involve?
So I mean, we are a Japanese game developer and publisher, and in Europe we sign games and we work with developers. We also then work with our colleagues in Japan who, are working on lots of really cool products. And we predominantly I work in the kind of more marketing side of things, although we do a lot of kind of hands-on and looking at the games that are developed for us. So we will come up with plans and strategies on how to put that in front of people, because the most important thing with games is that we sell them. The reason that the industry is in the state that it's in is because, games are having huge investment or requiring huge amounts of investment, and they're often not meeting, the return on that investment. And that obviously in turn impacts the number of jobs that can be kind of made available. And we had a bit of a boom after COVID because, record-breaking sales for a lot of titles. And then unfortunately, what goes up must come down, So I think we try our best to ensure that people are aware of the titles. And the thing is, there are so many games being made now that there's a lot of competition in the market, and we have to try and think out of the box. We do a lot of traditional paid media and advertising, so I will cut together a lot of ads, and then we will bring those along to different media companies, and we'll come up with lots of interesting and unique ideas to create organic reach to people as well. So something like what I just said, the mural that we painted for Silent Hill, which has James and Pyramid Head in London, that's gained a lot of attention on social media. There's been hundreds of pictures taken of it, which in turn, creates lots of other people talking about the game.
How did you go about doing that? Was that just in the middle of the night Banksy job, or did you?
Yeah. I was out there with my paintbrush.
What has been your sort of favourite project that you've worked on? Anything that stands out, games-wise or just product-wise?
I mean, I love Metal Gear, so the fact that I'm working on that IP is, an absolute dream come true. But maybe like one of the most special moments for me was being able to go out, meet with my colleagues in Japan, and work at Tokyo Game Show, which is an incredible event. Everyone is there, from the Japanese side of the industry. And I grew up on Japanese video games. I'm not sure about you guys, like there's so many different kind of types of games, but, growing up in the late 80s and early 90s, all of the big hitters were predominantly from Japan, and they're all there. And just having that opportunity to go out there and be a part of that, it was a dream come true for me.
Awesome. So you were sitting there, well, not there, but in the audience 10 years ago. What advice would you give yourself of 10 years ago, so now that you're in the same position as these guys?
I mean...
Well, you were in the same position as these guys, I should say.
I think I think we can all live with regret sometimes, and we can look back on our time in education. I think when you get older and you've been through education, you do it and you look back, you kind of go, I could have done this and I could have done that. And there's part of me which would probably say, whatever. But I would say, I wish that I had really acted upon. I had a desire at the time, and I still do, to make certain games by myself, and I wish I had used that time more wisely. And that's one of the things that I would say is to use your time when you're here wisely, have a good time, but also make sure that what you're doing leads you to that passion project, so that in 10 years' time you're sitting up here talking to another batch of students who want to go and work in the games industry and want to make games. Make that your passion, I would say. It's really important that it kind of bleeds through in everything you do. Work hard. The only reason I got to where I got to was because I worked hard. And I was a bit sneaky along the way, and I found means and ways to kind of get to where I wanted to get to. I would say that my role is not as traditional as maybe some roles. A lot of you guys maybe want to do art, maybe you want to do programming, maybe you want to, be a designer, level designer, whatever. I wasn't sure what I wanted, actually. I think I wanted to be an audio guy, and I did. I got a little taste of that, and then realized, am I good enough for that? And I think that reflection, that soul searching, is also really important. But I would say the most important thing, probably one of the most important things I would tell myself, is just keep that passion.
It's good advice. I mean, you guys are here and you're doing, I don't know which year you're in at the moment, but there's 3 years of your life. And there's a student who came to me who took a year out, and they've come back this year. And I had a one-to-one with them the other day, and they said that year out, they took it for personal reasons, but they realised when they came back that somewhat dead-end job that they were having to do to help support family was so helpful and eye-opening that when they came back and did their final year, or they're doing their final year now, they're like, I can't waste this. I'm not going to get another chance like this. So, yeah, good advice. I'm going to ask the audience if they've got some questions based on anything to do with getting into games or anything in particular with Nick's job. So, hands up if you have a question. Yep.
Hello. When you did your presentation to the person that you wanted to do your dream job from, what did you show him that perhaps you saw caught his interest?
It's a good question. I think I spent a real long time working on it, and I actually put a bunch of information into it. I collated together a bunch of ideas that I had for the company overall, things that I thought could help the company. But I also had a kind of a key piece, which at the time was it was a trailer for a game that we were working on. So I cut together like a trailer to show that I could do what one of my former colleagues could do, and I could replace that role and perhaps offer something a little bit different. And it also demonstrated that I had been to staff's uni as well. So yeah, he saw all of that information and he took it on board and realized that what I was doing within the company probably didn't actually suit or fit because I had these other skills available. And yeah, he gave me the opportunity.
Cool. Thank you.
You mentioned Gamescom earlier. Are there any other events like it that you could recommend?
What's the one in London called? It's EGX. EGX, it used to be called Rezzed once upon a time. I kind of followed Ukie around the country at one point, to be honest, because I was looking for a job once I graduated, and it was really difficult. And what I was trying to do was maintain that network of people that I knew, that I had met at Gamescom, and kind of create another network. I bought a ticket to the BAFTA Game Awards, I think, at one point, which Ukie had also been kind of a part of. And, the guys looked after me. They even tried to get me into the fancy dinner afterwards, which I had not paid for. So I kind of done the right things. I think, that's definitely one of them. You mentioned an event actually earlier.
I don't know whether you could be happy with me. It's my own event. So Let's Talk Games is an event that I run in Leamington.
What do you say it's called?
letstalkgames.org. If you want to have a look at the website, letstalkgames.org. So it's an event that brings in all the local studios from Leamington, pretty much. So you'll have about 20 speakers, and we use the auditorium, so it seats about 700. And staffs know about it. They'll be putting on bus transfers there and back. But if you want to know more, come and find me later. I won't take over this talk. But yeah, that's one. I mean, you've got things like Comic-Con as well, where there'll be some games-related studios there as well, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, if you can get down to London this weekend, you've got Comic-Con and EGX is on. I would say with some of those events, it's often difficult to know whether you're talking to somebody within the industry or whether it's somebody who has been hired for that event specifically, because they do hire staff to work the booths and stuff. So just be aware of that. But when you're looking to have those conversations, just be honest and open with some people and say, hey, I'm a student at the moment. I'll be graduating XYZ date. I'm just looking for information, or just go and say hi to people for sure.
Don't just throw your phone in their face and say, look at my work. That's not a nice thing to do to anybody.
And a very good business card never goes amiss, I would say. And a good clean one. Don't go create. I did this one.
Tiny font.
Yeah. I did this one, and it had a Mario style question mark on the back of it, and I thought I was being really clever. It was terrible. Don't do what I did.
I mean, if you from the art side, I mean, if from any side really, just a quick QR code on the back, and they can go bang straight to your website. If you're a designer and you've got playthroughs or games that you created, then that's the easiest way to look at it.
The best business cards I've ever seen are actually the cleanest, kind of straight to the point, and just have the name and basic information on them, and maybe a nice logo.
Yeah.
What would you say the transition was like going from university to working in an actual studio? Would you say that university projects prepared you for day-to-day life in your current job?
Ooh, good question.
That is a very good question. I would say yes, actually, it did. Because before I'd come to university, and I went as a mature student, I started studying at 24. You wouldn't believe it to look at me, but I'm nearly 40. I had worked in some real dead-end jobs, and I was doing a lot of kind of really dull data entry kind of stuff, telephone centers and things, and I was like, I want to go make video games. And me and my friend were like, let's go to university. Let's go and study game development, and we can have a good time when we're there, and we'll get a house and, party hard and, learn programming, I guess.
Were you back in the day of university grants?
Yes, yeah. It was a little bit, I guess it was a little bit different, maybe a little bit easier then. And because I was a mature student as well, it was a little bit easier financially, I guess. But yeah. So I would say that the project work, especially once you get to like FYP, is a big help in terms of giving you an understanding of just how difficult it is. Although having just worked on a AAA product, nothing prepared me for this year, and that's the first big product that I've worked on, and it was very, very hard work. I would say especially if you want to go and work in somewhere, some of the bigger studios, it's hard work. It's a lot of hours and a lot of dedication and time, energy.
Thank you.
Hiya. You spoke at length earlier about how important it was that you managed to go to Gamescom when you were starting out in your career. What was the pathway like from being a university student to being given those kind of opportunities? Because I don't imagine you could just go to Ukie and be like, so I'm going to go with you now, whether you like it or not type deal. Yeah,
so it's definitely something worth asking the guys from Ukie about. This was an opportunity that actually just came through on my student email. And it was Ukie basically saying, and I think they still do it, as far as I understand, they give people the opportunity. So you make an application and you explain what you've been doing. So I had explained that I'd been here at this event, and then I explained that I had also been at a Ukie Games Jam. And I explained other things that I had done in my life. So I used to be a musician, and I'd kind of toured around the country with some big bands and stuff. And I guess that life experience helped to kind of seal me as somebody appropriate to go and be a part of that. I would say if you were looking to go independently, yeah, there's a financial implication to that. And if you're able to save, because it may be worthwhile, then potentially look at doing that. But I would definitely look at other opportunities, other ways that you might be able to go and visit, or other events essentially, that may then lead to that opportunity in the future.
Sure, thank you.
There's no. Sean's told me to be very careful with this. They are looking into running a very similar project where they take students to Gamescom again. But then it's not right now, so don't jump at it. They're looking into doing the Gamescom. Ukie. Same thing that Nick went on.
So it sounds like they're not running it at the moment, but they may do again in the future. And if they do, please definitely try your best to put an application forward.
Perfect.
What advice can you give to helping with the work-life balance?
Probably the worst person to ask for that. I think, let me put it this way. I think your life experience will often kind of dictate and inform you on whether or not you are kind of living your life in a way that is, maybe beyond your means as a social battery and an energy battery. I think it very much depends on the job and it depends on, what you're doing when you're studying. Just for context, do you mean in terms of education and maybe the extra work that you're doing to maybe try and find a job, or do you mean when you're actually in industry?
Kind of both, but currently more I'm in education and trying to do other things alongside it and coming up with a few problems of scheduling issues of different things.
I think I might be one of the worst people to ask for that, because scheduling is not my forte. But I would definitely say that focus on your passion, in the context of if something isn't working from a scheduling perspective, the most important thing is to be honest and open with whoever it is that you need to be talking to make sure that things are working, because I think most people I've ever worked with are really reasonable, and there is leeway to be granted. And I'm sure that that's the same in education, is that I'm trying to do X, Y, and Z, and there are not enough hours in the day. I still want to have a life. I still want to be able to, I mean, when I was at university, I used to play a hell of a load of video games, and I can tell you for damn sure now, I don't play many video games at all now. It's like sod's law. It's like you have to buy it all when you're younger and you're a student and stuff, and then when you work in the games industry, people hand you games and codes and things like that, and never get any time to play them. And it's just about finding that fine line between, can I have a conversation with somebody that I work with, or who is more senior, or it's a lecturer, or it's a course leader, or whatever, to find that balance that works for me. I don't know if that helps. I don't know if that's maybe too obvious, but I think that honest and open conversation is key, really key to being able to essentially make sure that what's going on for you in your life, because we are not just game developers. We're not just we're human beings, and we all have wants and needs and things that we want to do. I would say go and talk to whoever you need to talk to ensure that you have that balance. To be able to make time, and make time for yourself as well. Sometimes it's okay to just step away from a computer, and as they say, touch grass.
I'd echo what you said about the passion side as well. I think if you're doing something that you're passionate about, if you really enjoy your subject, everyone must have been at that point where they're sat at their computer and they're doing something, and then they look down at the time and it's like, oh my God, I've been sat here for that much time. That's called a state of flow. So you're so ingrained in what you're doing, and people do it when they're playing video games as well, and hours go by, because they've designed the game that well that they keep you playing it, right? That flow in a game. That happens if you're doing something that you genuinely enjoy doing. And if you're someone like, for me, it was modeling and texturing, I can sit inside Substance Designer and hours will go by and I'm just modeling and making stuff. Then that means that I'm doing the right thing that's going to help me progress. I'm going to end up doing that role as I move on, and I'm going to enjoy doing it, even if I can go home and carry on doing it as a passion project as well as wanting to do it at work,
Yeah.
So yeah, find that passion. And if you're not quite on the right course, or there's something that you enjoy more, find that thing in life that really ticks that box, because you're going to be doing it for a long time.
100% agree with that.
Yeah.
Cheers, thank you. So you mentioned a lot about passion. Has there been times where, either for a couple days, months, whatever, where you lost that passion, as well as one of the issues I've come into is even as a hobby, I enjoy developing games, but as work, I develop games. And there's sometimes that disconnect of what is enjoyment and having that balance to separate the two. Obviously, you mentioned maybe not the best to ask about balance, but how have you lost that passion and refound it over the years?
I think that's a really good question. And I have definitely lost passion over time. I think when your life revolves around something, whether it be for hobby or work or both, it can be really difficult to, essentially keep yourself motivated. And I think it's actually a case of motivation rather than, necessarily passion. But like I said, moving away from, or finding some time to move away from that and put what you love into perspective, you can often, find a way to fall in love with it again. I will oftentimes kind of go away from all of that stuff, and I will develop stuff in the background by myself. I do work on other things outside of work that are games related, and I think even just playing video games outside of work is games related. And when you work in the games industry and then you go home, sometimes you're just like, oh my God, why am I doing this? Because I've been at work with this all day. And I think, sometimes to be able to just pull yourself away from it for 5 minutes is, really important. And finding that one of those things that is just so far removed from it. So when I was a kid, I really liked playing football. And I was one of those kind of people that was not, overly passionate necessarily about the football team I support, Arsenal, by the way. And when I got into the games industry, and even when I was studying, football became this kind of crutch because I have nothing to do with it, really. I enjoy having a kickabout. I think, some people really do enjoy sport and things like that. And sport is great, by the way, for being able to kind of get those endorphins going and, really clear the air and also find passion again. But like watching football, which is really far removed from game development and, working with games and stuff, finding one of those things that takes you away from it all, going and watching live music, something that is able to put it into a different context, essentially, so that you can then sort of turn around and go, oh, damn, that's actually why I fell in love with making games. That's why I fell in love with playing games. I think having those eureka moments over and over again is really important.
I've got nothing to add to that. I think that's fine. I mean, there's times I studied animation when I was at university, got to the end of year 3, got a good grade, but I just didn't ever want to animate ever again because I just worked so hard in that last year and that was, just didn't want to touch it. So I didn't. I took a break, step away, did some menial jobs, and then eventually came back and did got a junior animator role, and then moved into teaching after that, and found a love for it again. So it does come back. But you will get sick of it perhaps at some point, but it's cool, it's fine. All those skills that you've learned, like riding a bike, they're going to still be there when your passion comes back for it. So don't stress.
And like anything, we are machines in a way. We constantly learning. Don't be afraid to switch it up and learn different things. Yeah. If you want to make a game by yourself, give it a crack. But if it doesn't work, you've learned something, and even if it's like an abject failure, you can kind of compartmentalize that, put it away, and then in the future you've learned from that thing, and you can move on and do something different that's interesting.
Yeah, it's never been easier to make games or to get hold of software. Everything's free. Like that wasn't the case back in our day.
No.
I'm 41 as well, by the way. And it wasn't as easy. You didn't have hundreds of YouTube videos telling you how to do things. It was books, sitting and reading and trying to work out how to do things that way. And it was hard.
To put it into perspective, when I first started studying at Staffs, the engine that we were using was called UDK, which was based on Unreal Tournament. And it wasn't until my 3rd year at Staffs that Unreal Engine 4 released. And it changed everything because visual scripting and blueprints meant that even if you weren't great at writing programming and learning a language, you could then start to understand the idea behind doing that and, change the game.
Yeah. Was UDK the one that you kind of built inside out? Like you borrowed your world as opposed to...
Yeah, it was, what was it? I can't remember now. It had this, basically it was like really resource intensive. You had to build blocks, essentially. You'd use this little set square and build blocks. it was not friendly.
You guys have got it easy, honestly. Drag-drop materials, PBR, job done.
Yeah. I couldn't believe it when I saw
It's
that.
all there, and the amount of tutorials that you've got available to you is just insane now. So use them. One last question, if there is one.
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So this is more of like a personal interest question, but when games marketing media comes out and is generally received negatively by like the core audience of the game, what kind of discussions does that prompt with you and your team, and how does it inform your decisions with the marketing materials you make?
So it's interesting because I think what happens a lot of the time is people may look at the social media that they use and the algorithms that are pushed in front of them and assume instantly that something is poorly received. We use a lot of analytics tools to really pass.
Hi all, just a quick announcement. The food's going to be out till about 3:15. We've got some left, so if you want to go get some extra sandwiches or some crisps, please come help yourself.
It's all right, you got half an hour. 3:15 is in half an hour.
We use analytics tools to pass open that information and really look deeper into it, and we can see across the board on social media, what people are saying about announcements, about games, and then we can take that data and turn it into statistics, which allows us to see whether the sentiment is positive or negative, and that gives us a much clearer picture. So I think one of the things that I used to do before I worked in the industry was, and I think a lot of people do, is they make assumptions about how well something is received. And yeah, a lot of times there may be something which is completely tone deaf and, the audience is completely and utterly switched off from. But we are able to look deeper into that and then make significant changes. So that has happened on projects that I've worked on where, let's say, one trailer went out where we announced and it was really, really well received. And then the second trailer went out and people bashed it big time. We went away and we had a conversation about that using this set of analytics, blimey, and we were able to essentially, say, look, this is what people don't like about what we did here, and also this is what this brand should mean to people. Now, in my case, because I'm working at Konami, we're working with a lot of brands that are pre-established and have been around for a good 20 to 30 years. And I think people in their minds have an idea of what those games should represent. And that makes that job easier. I think if you're working in a more indie setting, that makes that way harder. And actually, I think in the indie space, it's about building up that brand identity. So you're making something that genuinely means something to someone. I think, in a company like ours, or a company that has bigger IPs, you're very easily able to ride the coattails of something that is long pre-established and also maybe has a little bit of luck associated with it because it was around during what some might consider like PS1, PS2 era, golden era of gaming. Like where people were establishing what the parameters of a good game should be, and now we're in a period of time where kind of nearly anybody could make a game if they wanted to, and it's about what that brand should mean. So I think that's a really good question. I think brand is super important, and it's a big part of actually what my team and I do. And actually, some of the members of my team are way better at that than I am. But we collaborate, and I think that was something that I talked about earlier. Essentially, collaboration is key in this industry. Having those conversations, understanding why people feel the way they feel about certain things, collaborating on creativity, creative ideas, and where to go next.
Cool. That pretty much takes us to the end. One really quick fire question. What do you see as being the most exciting trend coming up in video games? Are we all going to be running around with AR glasses on?
Not AI. I think that's a really interesting question because I think that the industry is in a state of flux. And I think from my perspective, and I think that this is maybe a more selfish answer, is more tailor-made experiences for people. I'm still really intrigued to see where AR and VR goes, but I just don't think that we're there yet. Mm-hmm. When I say not AI, I would love to see AI used to properly implement some interesting enemy types within games, because I still feel like in AAA games, for example, I feel like the NPCs and characters that we come across are really not particularly unique, and I would love to see AI used to really open out and turn those NPC characters into making those kind of, especially bigger environments, unique worlds that genuinely feel lived in. Because if you're going to spend 40 to 80 hours of your time, in that world, you might as well feel like those characters mean something. And I think, if you could use ChatGPT to have a conversation with somebody in a game world. That would be pretty cool. Like open-ended dialogue. Yeah, I think that I mean, I could talk about that forever, to be honest. And if you want to talk to me afterwards, feel free to do so.
Amazing. Guys, round of applause, please, for Nick.
Thanks for coming. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.